Hi, if you want to watch exclusive content with hot girls that you won't watch on YouTube, namely where Naruto roasts Kushina and Mikoto and many other hot girls without restrictions, then visit my Boosty channel at the link in the description.
Reaching his home, Kurama noticed that the light was on in the room on the second floor. Entering the house, he was met by complete silence, but he heard a quiet female singing. With a calm step, he began to climb up to the second floor. The closer he got to the room where the light was on, the louder the singing became. Opening the door, Kurama saw that there was a woman next to Naruto's lullaby. She was humming a counting rhyme that was painfully familiar to Kurama. She was also holding her baby, who was only 3 days older than Naruto. A good song. It's a pity that there are so few people who remember it now. The girl continued singing the song. Kurama realized that she would not say a word until she finished the song and until the kids fell asleep. So you know? The girl stopped singing. Yes, Kurama, I know it's you. Believe me, I've known you too long and too well. You can't argue with that argument. I see you've changed. Who I was is no longer there. Now I have a new face. But it's still a name, she noted. What can you do? Choosing a name is like making a promise. Kurama nodded. Mikoto smiled and continued, well, since Kushina entrusted Naruto's upbringing to you, I won't object. Kurama smiled and nodded his head quietly, thank you, Miko. Mikoto smiled back at him, well, since you're here, I have to go. If anything happens, feel free to contact me anytime. You don't have to try so hard. You already have enough trouble, Kurama said, gesturing at the baby in her arms. Don't worry about me. The most important thing now is them. Mikoto stood up and went to the door. Kurama approached Naruto's crib. He watched with interest as this little bundle of life gently snored. Kurama. Mikoto, who was already standing at the door, called out to him. It's not your fault that what happened. But know this, that night, not only did you lose the one you loved, but I also lost my best friend. Kurama didn't say a word, and didn't tear his gaze away from Naruto. He just nodded coldly. Good night, both of you. And Mikoto left. Kurama watched Naruto for a little while longer, and then went to his room to sleep. In a few minutes, Kurama had just fallen asleep when suddenly, for no apparent reason, Naruto began to cry. Kurama jumped out of bed and ran to the lullaby. Already holding his katana in his hands, he ran into the room and saw no one. There were only Kurama and Naruto in the room. Kurama began to notice everything that caught his eye. After all, he himself understood that a baby could not cry for no reason. But he soon realized that there was no one in the room except them. Then Kurama put his katana back in its sheath and approached the crying baby. Why are you crying, little one? He asked, leaning over Naruto. The baby, wiping his eyes from tears, began to watch Kurama with an interested look. Suddenly Naruto took Kurama by the hair and began to pull it. Kurama quickly jumped back, but it was too late, a small tuft of red hair was squeezed by small hands. Oh, you little one! He wanted to yell at Naruto, but remembering that in front of him was a baby, he already began to calm himself down. You must be hungry? In response, Naruto smiled and began to reach for Kurama. Kurama picked up the baby and walked down to the kitchen, deep in thought. The couple passed the living room and found themselves in the kitchen. To be honest, Kurama didn't know what to feed him. He remembered that babies were usually given milk. So, taking a bag of milk from the refrigerator, Kurama poured it into a bottle and gave it to Naruto. The baby didn't drink it. Kurama looked at the bottle with confusion. Suddenly, he remembered that the milk needed to be heated. So, he took the bottle and, using a fire technique, heated the milk in his hand. Naruto didn't even pick up the bottle. It seemed that Kurama had overheated the milk. Kurama poured out all the contents of the bottle and went to get more milk. While already heating up the second milk, Kurama's nerves began to boil. Naruto picked up the bottle, took a couple of sips, and stopped drinking. Seriously? I suffered here for an hour so you could take a couple of sips? Kurama was indignant, and Naruto, looking at his face, began to laugh. The fox himself didn't know what to do, but he really wanted to sleep. And then an idea popped into his head. He went back to the nursery, sat down on the floor, and sat Naruto down in front of him. "Hey, Naruto? Want a trick?" With these words, 9 red tails appeared behind Kurama's back, and long fox ears appeared on his head. Apparently, Kurama decided to tire Naruto out so that he would fall asleep faster, and so he let the baby play with his tails. The fair-haired boy began to laugh loudly. Kurama leaned on the edge of the wooden crib and diligently amused the boy. Naruto was completely absorbed in Kurama's tails, which in the blink of an eye became the best toy. Of course, there were colorful rattles next to Naruto, but how could they compare to tails that were not only warm, but could also move on their own? Morning. The next morning, Mikoto decided to check on Kurama. So, entering the nursery, she was pleasantly surprised by the scene. Naruto was sleeping tenderly, wrapped in large red tails, and Kurama, leaning against a wooden crib, was also sleeping. Mikoto did not wake Kurama, but just smiled. She went down to the kitchen. When Kurama woke up, a pleasant surprise awaited him in the form of breakfast. Kurama sat on the floor, patiently watching little Naruto, who had just recently turned 3. Kurama decided to give the little boy a little test. He laid out a few things around him, namely, a kunai, a 5-yen coin, a pen, and a pot of earth. "So, Naruto. Here's your task, choose the item you like." Naruto looked at Kurama, and then turned his gaze to the things. Suddenly, he began to crawl in the middle, and in the middle was a kunai. Kurama already knew that the boy would become a ninja, like his parents. But to Kurama's surprise, Naruto crawled past the kunai, and began to get closer to him. When Naruto crawled to Kurama, he sat in front of him, and raising his hands to Kurama, he shouted, "Ma." Kurama looked at the baby in surprise, who was stretching out his arms to him. He simply couldn't understand. "No, no, no. Naruto, I'm not a mother, I'm Kurama." The fox said his name, loudly and clearly. "Mom." Naruto repeated with a big smile. "Well." Drew out, "Mom is fine." "But we've gotten off topic," Kurama said, picking Naruto up and placing him back in the circle of objects. "I want you to choose your profession yourself. Let me explain: kunai ninja, coin nuke pen bureaucratic rat, pot of earth farmer, or at worst an ordinary villager with an ordinary job and a boring life." Kurama continued to speak, and Naruto began to blow bubbles from his mouth. "Do you understand me, Naruto?" "Mom? You know, Naruto, I liked you better when you didn't learn to speak." "Ma." "Okay, let's take a break." Kurama took the baby and headed to the kitchen. Having seated him at the table, Kurama began to look at what was left in the refrigerator. "Little one, do you want some meat?" "Ma?" Naruto looked at Kurama with confusion. Kurama didn't understand anything, but he took these words as no. Continuing to rummage through the refrigerator, he came across a large green apple. Taking the apple, Kurama gave it to Naruto. He began to play with the apple as if it were a ball. "Naruto, I don't play with food, I eat it," Kurama said patiently. Naruto seemed to understand what they wanted to convey to him. So he began to put it in his mouth, but he could not bite off anything. Kurama restrainedly snatched the apple from Naruto's hands. He turned his right hand into a paw, and using his claws, cut the apple into equal slices. Having extended one slice to Naruto, Kurama began to watch what was happening. Naruto turned the slice in his hands, and then stuck it all in his mouth. At this point, Kurama's patience snapped. "You have to chew it, not swallow it whole," Kurama shouted, pulling the slice out of Naruto's mouth. As soon as the foreign object was in Kurama's hands, Naruto began to laugh merrily at the face of his pet. "Ma." Naruto shouted his favorite phrase. Kurama covered his face with his hand in anger. "Even I wasn't this stupid when I was your age. Do you know any other words? Dad, mom, eat, drink, sleep?" To which Naruto blinked his eyes in surprise, and, "Ma? Eh. Then cries of suffering were heard. And all the people thought that it was wolves howling. Later in the evening, Naruto sat on the couch and looked triumphantly at the disheveled Kurama. The man kept ruffling his hair while trying to coax another word from the boy. But the boy was silent and didn't even say his favorite "ma." Kurama was already terrified to imagine how Naruto would study at the academy if he was already resisting learning some of the most important skills, how to walk and talk. And how to potty train? Shivering, Kurama turned to the baby. Naruto, my dear, my darling, come on, say daddy, or uncle, or mommy. Kurama said as softly as possible, and the boy looked at him in confusion. Curse. Kurama couldn't stand it any longer, and the child smiled happily, but remained silent. Kurama lowered his head and began to shake it from side to side. Kushina, you weren't that stubborn. Is he really like his father? Such empty talk had been happening frequently in recent days. And it seemed that the nine-tailed fox, which would drive anyone crazy, was starting to go crazy itself. But no one had told the demon fox that every child is an individual who decides for himself when it is time to talk and walk, so Kurama talked, and talked. Kurama sighed heavily and went into the kitchen. Tired and upset, he made himself a sandwich and returned to Naruto, who was sitting on the floor, looking out the window at the Hokage mountain with wide eyes. So, do you like your dad? The fox asks, taking a bite out of his sandwich and plopping down on the couch. Naruto turns around at the sound of Kurama's voice. Papa, the boy said one syllable and stretched out his hands towards Kurama. The woeful parent choked on a piece of sandwich. The grimacing Kurama always made the little boy happy, who lay on the couch and happily watched as the man's facial expressions and complexion changed with astonishing speed. The reason for such grimaces was that the fox was lying on the very edge of the sofa, away from the child and, most importantly, from Kurama himself. Life didn't prepare me for this, Kurama whispered under his breath, looking at the stinking diaper, and then quickly closed his eyes. Seconds later. After counting 10 seconds, he looked at the biological weapon and sighed in disappointment. It didn't disappear. Not for the umpteenth time. I'm starting to doubt that I'm the demon fox. Quickly running to the kitchen and taking out a pair of bright yellow gloves from a drawer, which he quickly put on his right hand, Kurama returned to Naruto and, taking the smelly bundle by the cleanest edge, holding it away from himself, headed outside. When he burned the diaper with his power, Kurama sighed with relief and, taking off the glove and throwing it in the sink upon his return, went to the baby. Why didn't you warn me that you were such an asshole, Naruto? The boy, ignoring Kurama's question, reached out to the fox with his hands, subtly hinting that he no longer wanted to contemplate only the ceiling and his impudent fox face, and therefore the man should carry him in his arms. We don't take kids with dirty asses for rides, Kurama said with a serious face, but despite his own phrase, Kurama still picked up the freeloader, grabbed him under the arms, and held him at arm's length. It was funny for Naruto, and safe for Kurama, so they reached a compromise and headed to the bathroom. When Naruto was 5 years old, Kurama decided to go for a walk with him for the first time. Well, Naruto, are you ready? Yes. Naruto answered loudly, and Kurama smiled back at him. Kurama took Naruto by the hand and they went together. At first they walked along the streets. The street was quite lively. Everyone was running somewhere, hurrying. But something was bothering Kurama. As if they were being watched, but Kurama tried not to notice it. Kurama suddenly remembered something and decided to visit his favorite place. Entering the cafe, Kurama was greeted, as always, by his favorite atmosphere. There was no one in the cafe. How are you, Kurama? Kurama heard a familiar voice from behind the counter. Behind the counter stood a girl dressed in a white apron and a chef's hat. Hi, Nico. We decided to have a snack before our walk. We? Who else should I cook for? Kurama pointed his left hand down at Naruto. Nico looked down, and when she saw Naruto, she understood everything. What advice can you give Naruto? Nico, holding her chin, began to think. And it seemed to dawn on her. She snapped her fingers and said, now it will all happen. She ran off to the kitchen with a satisfied look. And Kurama sat down, together with Naruto, in his favorite place in the corner, from where there was a good view of the counter. After a while, Nico came to them with a tray. Here, Kurama, as usual, she said, putting the plate on the table. On one side of the plate there was a handful of finely chopped fried meat, poured with a special sauce on top, and in the other a handful of fried potatoes, and next to it lay 2 pitas. And Kurama, without ceremony, took the plate and layer by layer, began to put first the meat and then the potatoes. And so on until the pita was filled. And so he began to gobble up two, as he calls them, shawarmas. And this is for you, you slob, Nico said sweetly, and put a plate of ramen in Naruto's hands. Kurama looked at Nico in surprise. Nico, are you sure he'll eat it? Nico replied with a wide smile, if he doesn't eat it, the food is on the house. The desire to eat for free overcomes Kurama, and he, nodding approvingly, began to watch Naruto. Naruto took the chopsticks in his hands, as Uncle Kurama taught him, and taking the noodles with his chopsticks, he took a small sip. And then he began to gobble up the ramen without stopping. Kurama, amazed by Naruto's behavior, had already begun to say goodbye to the free food. When Naruto finished eating, Kurama, with a frowning look, gave the money to Nico. It's a pleasure doing business with you, Kurama. Nico sneered, snatching the money from his hands. Shut up, Kurama muttered angrily, and, taking Naruto by the hand, began to leave. Goodbye, Auntie. Naruto said and waved his hand at Nico. She smiled and also waved goodbye. Our company finally reached the playground. Mikoto and her son, Sasuke, were already waiting for them there. Sasuke was more like his mother. The same black hair and eyes, but with one caveat. Considering that his father, Fugaku Uchiha, had a bad character, the boy inherited from him an empty view of the world. Every time Kurama saw his eyes, he knew only two things. Firstly, this kid's Sharingan will awaken sooner or later. And when that happens, Kurama should be more careful. Secondly, he had a blank look at absolutely everything. And only 3 people aroused his interest: his mother, Mikoto, his older brother Itachi, and, surprisingly, Naruto. Here you are, Mikoto greeted them. We decided to drop in for a bite to eat, and I was pleased and at the same time not surprised at Naruto's cafe, Kurama said in an alienated voice. Yes? Naruto, what did you do in the cafe that even surprised Kurama? Mikoto asked, leaning towards Naruto. I don't think now is the time. But then Kurama was killed. I ate the layman, and Uncle Ku gave it to Auntie, Naruto shouted with a big smile on his face. Still, Kurama was ashamed that he, a creature whose roar made everyone afraid, was unable to properly teach the boy to pronounce the letter R. It was simply outrageous. Really? Mikoto asked, and then laughed. Kurama felt uneasy. Forgive me, Kurama, but it's true. There's no point in arguing with you, you'll lose anyway, she said, calming down. What are you talking about? Did you collude or something? The man was indignant. Okay, you two, come here. Mikoto said kindly to the 2 children. Sasuke and Naruto approached her. You can go play, and Kurama and I will chat a little. Remember, you have each other, if something happens, one will protect the other, but fists do not always solve everything. You are friends after all. We will be nearby, if something happens, run to us. They both nodded and ran. I must admit, however, that your oratory skills have improved since then. I still remember you as an insecure herbalist, but one who had enough courage to save her comrades. Yes. You demons call it useless and unnecessary love and kindness. Yes. Tell me, Kurama, she began, looking at him intently. Yes? What? Do you remember your childhood? Kurama's face darkened and he turned his head to the side. Not exactly. He squeezed out. But in fact, he remembered everything perfectly. He remembered his brothers and sisters, his mother and father, and how they spent time together, but all these memories for him were just one big salt on an already deep wound. It's clear. She understood without further ado that he had no desire to talk about it. I'm sorry. Here Kurama lightly tapped her on the forehead with his finger. You fool, you don't need to apologize. The man said seriously. At first Mikoto was surprised, then she thought that the fox had become impudent, but she still understood that it was just a fox joke. Suddenly someone's loud voice was heard. Kurama and Mikoto hurried towards it. When they ran there, they saw this picture. Naruto was lying on the ground, and Sasuke was standing next to him, looking at the woman standing nearby with them. "Don't come near my child, monster!" she screamed at Naruto. The black-haired boy standing next to him helped Naruto stand up. Mikoto quickly ran up to both of them and began to examine them. "Naruto. Sasuke. Are you okay?" she asked worriedly. They both nodded quietly. "Oh, thank God," she said with relief and hugged them both. And Kurama looked angrily at that woman. And how angry he would be. "Why did you do this to him? You have no idea who you're protecting, Shinobi. This little demon. It's all his fault." Kurama hates many things, but he specifically singles out two things, namely his father and human stupidity. Kurama smirked. "You people are so stupid that you accuse an innocent boy of something he didn't do." "Yes." Drawn out. "Your stupidity truly knows no bounds." Everyone who stood nearby looked at Kurama in surprise and horror. And then he remembered. It was them. Those who were watching them, and those whose gaze the fox felt. It was them. The frightened and aggressive gazes of ordinary people. "Believe me, my dear," Kurama began again, "now, instead of hurting an innocent boy, you should thank the great Rakudo that your child is breathing at all now. Otherwise, he could have been eaten by you-know-who." "Kurama, that's enough." Mikoto took Kurama's hand. "Let's go. You won't make the situation any better now." Kurama, gritting his teeth, still followed Mikoto and the children. After some time, Mikoto and Kurama with the children went home. Kurama did not forget to thank Sasuke for helping Naruto. To which the younger Uchiha looked coldly at Kurama, and also nodded without indignation. The rest of the way home, Naruto looked very upset. Kurama returned home from his mission 3 days later. "I'm home," Kurama shouted, and then quick footsteps were heard from above. "Uncle Ku," Naruto shouted as he walked down the stairs. "Hey, easy there, Hurricane." Kurama laughed and caught Naruto on the stairs. "What did I tell you about running up and down the stairs?" Kurama asked seriously, putting the boy down on the ground and kneeling next to him, and even more so, "Why aren't you in bed?" "I'm hungry," Naruto said quietly, looking straight at the floor. "Nice try, Naruto. But I know Mikoto won't leave you hungry even if I tell her," Kurama said, not surprised, getting up from his knees. Coughed. "She would kill me if I asked her to do that," the man said as quietly as possible, and Naruto let out a similar laugh. "All right. Tomorrow we're going for a walk," Kurama said, and patted the boy on the head. Naruto looked pleased, and so quickly headed to bed. In a few minutes, Kurama started to put Naruto to bed, and was about to leave when Naruto called out to him, "Uncle Ku?" "Yes?" "What's the matter, you slob?" he asked, returning to the bed. "Why do people look at me like that?" "How do they look at you?" The fox tried to portray surprise. "I think they hate me," Naruto sobbed quietly. Kurama shook his head and began to wipe away his tears. "It's not like that, Naruto. Don't worry. They will soon realize that you are a boy with a kind heart." "Uncle Ku, I want to become Hokage." "What?" Kurama was genuinely surprised. "In the future, I will become Hokage, and I will try to help everyone," Naruto exclaimed. "Yes." Stretched out, thought Kurama, "Even though you look like your father, Naruto, in all other respects, you are definitely like your mother." "Uncle Ku, can you tell me about Mom?" Kurama's face darkened noticeably. "Why don't you ask Mikoto?" the fox asked in a reserved tone. "Aunt Miko doesn't say anything." Kurama stood up and turned his back to Naruto. "Ask Mikoto. Tell her that I didn't tell her anything." With that, Kurama went to his room. Night. Kurama couldn't sleep properly. He kept thinking about how to talk to Naruto normally. But every time Naruto mentioned his mother, Kurama just didn't want to talk. Before, the boy didn't really ask about her, but now he started to show noticeable interest. Suddenly, Kurama sat up in bed and stared at the door. He got up and went to the door leading to the toilet. He started listening, and heard crying coming from there. He opened the door, and saw Naruto, who was standing and wiping away his tears. "Why are we crying, Naruto?" The fox asked, leaning towards him. Nightmares, Naruto said through tears. Kurama was surprised. Where did he get nightmares from? Okay. Stop crying. Let's go. I can't. Why is that? Sobs. Aunt Miko said that if you want to cry, you should do it in the toilet, or in your mother's arms. Naruto, I'll tell you honestly, the fox began his story, your mother. She too, was a crybaby. And then Naruto began to listen to what Kurama was saying. Even when we first met, she was very afraid of me. Because then I was different. I was very gloomy and angry then, but your mother helped me get on the right path. She showed me that not all people can be evil, because there are those who are always ready to help each other no matter what. And since then, your mother became someone for me whom I would protect until the end of time. Here Kurama stopped and looked at his hand. Drops started falling on his hand. Damn. Here we go again. Kurama started crying again. This was already the 4th time he cried in his entire existence. Why? Why am I crying? Kurama asked himself a question that he himself did not know the answer to. And then he noticed, hey, why are you crying? Kurama asked Naruto with a smile, who also started crying. I'm not crying. Naruto shouted. And Kurama, hugging him, said, forgive me. I just remembered my mother. Kurama adjusted the boy's uniform and smoothed his hair. Naruto grimaced from such care and, as soon as the man turned away, tousled his blonde hair. The boy wanted to take off his unfamiliar clothes and put on a bright orange t-shirt and pants worn out from constant wear. Today was an important day for Naruto, but he felt not joy, but disgust at all this fuss. The fox had expected such a reaction since the time of the first steps and words, when the boy resisted studying. And now Naruto seemed to sense what his beloved guardian was condemning him to. Uncle Ku, I don't want to go there. Let's go and eat ramen? He looked at Kurama hopefully, but he shook his head. Let's go to the academy, and on the way back we'll have ramen. Kurama couldn't help but smile when he heard the quiet, and then you don't have to. That's great. There's no such thing as too much money. And Naruto began to blame himself for what he said. Kurama took the flowers from the nightstand, and handing Naruto a bouquet, pushed him towards the open door, but the boy turned to Kurama, threw the flowers on the floor and grabbed the door frame, not wanting to move from the spot and leave the house. What is this? Kurama was indignant and, hugging him by the stomach, gently pulled him outside, but the child's hands tightly grabbed the dark tree. Naruto. Stop wasting your time with this nonsense. Kurama shouted menacingly, but Naruto only shouted, no. I won't go. I don't want to. So many years of suffering. Better kill me. You'll like it. They feed you for free, you'll make new friends, and you'll be home by evening. And you don't have to study today. Just stand for a bit. Kurama continued to gently pull him towards himself, hoping to unhook Naruto from the doorframe without using too much force. You can't fool me. The boy's palms were sweating and his fingers were starting to slip, but he didn't give up. This is fiery Gehenna. Penal servitude that will leave a trauma for the rest of my life. Have you become completely insolent, dandy? Where did you pick up such words? Kurama was surprised by such impudence. The man glanced at his watch. Immediately realizing that they were late, he pulled Naruto away from the doorframe with one jerk and, throwing him over his shoulder, picked up the crumpled bouquet, closed the door and ran towards the academy. The boy hit the fox on the back with the unfortunate bouquet, in which several flowers were already broken, cried and screamed, but Kurama steadfastly endured such a beating. Passers-by will remember for a long time the cries of help. They're kidnapping me, or daddy, mommy, save me, and the kidnapper himself will be surprised that no one called for help after such cries. Although after Naruto painted the Hokage mountain, this is quite understandable. After drinking the cold water in one powerful gulp and placing the glass on the table with a loud bang, Kurama began the conversation. That's it, Mikoto, I'm back with you. Kurama, is something wrong? The woman asked worriedly, concerned about the fox's anxiety. Kurama had come to her a few minutes ago. His speech was slurred and he was breathing heavily, as if after a long run. While the man took a sip of life-giving liquid to calm down a little, She, putting her hand on her heart, waited patiently, hoping that her heart would not jump out of her chest from fear and excitement. Naruto, God, what is it? Kurama's intonation made the woman's head spin and her mouth go dry. The most terrible options flashed before her eyes, and each image made her feel worse and worse, until Kurama finished his sentence, I brought the girl today. For which he got a well-deserved slap on the back of the head from the overexcited woman. Ugh. I already thought that something terrible had happened. Although her voice was grumpy, she still couldn't help but sigh with relief, and now everything is in detail. 6 hours ago. Kurama returned home and heard his favorite, and when I become Hokage. Kurama shook his head. No, the boy had an unusually poor imagination. The fox thought that perhaps he should kill a person every time he promised to become Hokage, but he changed his mind. The boy would probably be upset. Alright then. We'll show up uninvited. Kurama decided, and, assuming his most menacing appearance, kicked the door down. Naruto oh. You oh, and suddenly a quiet girlish sigh was heard. The girl, who was already in a semi-conscious state due to Naruto's presence, was now slowly sinking to the floor, blissfully closing her eyes. Uzumaki picked up the sensitive girl. Uncle Ku. Why scare me like that? In response, Kurama scratched the back of his head with his hand, puzzled, being ready for screams and indignation. Eh? The powerful demon fox could not say anything else right now. We were just talking here. He nodded at the unconscious girl. I didn't know what else to talk to her about except this, and then you showed up. Eh? The nine-tailed demon fox felt mentally retarded for the second time in a minute. She's my classmate. This is Hinata Hyuga. Naruto said sensually, raising his finger up and almost dropping the girl. AAA. The fox said thoughtfully. The boy and the man fell silent. One was trying to bring the girl to consciousness, the other was thinking about something of his own. Listen, what is she doing here? And then Naruto told him that he met a girl that night. She was sitting by the lantern and quietly crying. So Naruto decided to help her. And the closest house was theirs, so there was no choice. Ah. I see. And then Kurama got scared. Can I ask you a question? Uzumaki nodded. Do you have a girlfriend? Uzumaki blushed. What makes you think that? The guy asked without looking up, laying Hinata down on the sofa. I don't have anyone. Are you trying to lie to me? You know how well I can learn the truth. The demon fox chuckled. Naruto stood up straight, clutching the medicine bottle in his hands. His mouth opened and closed indignantly, reminding Kurama of a choking, bright orange fish. Relax, man, he said placatingly, I won't do anything like that. That's good, otherwise you won't be able to pat me on the head, Naruto grumbled, sitting down on his knees. What? What? Naruto, we need to have a serious talk. Kurama sat down at the table opposite the boy. Before the man arrived, Naruto was preparing for his standard dinner, noodles. Even when Naruto was a child, Kurama noticed this incredible passion for such unhealthy food. At first, the fox scolded him for his unhealthy diet, then raided the boy's room and threw out all his supplies, then took the almost finished delicacy from under his nose and replaced it with rice, salad, or something more useful. But everything turned out to be useless, and Kurama had to come to terms with Naruto's food preferences. If he gets appendicitis, he'll understand, the fox told himself, but Naruto had a surprisingly strong body. The noodles that the boy was about to eat calmly slipped off the chopsticks and fell into the bowl, splashing the broth around the edges. Naruto watched as Kurama rubbed one hand together nervously and raised an eyebrow questioningly. I understand that you are still young, but I think it is better to tell you now than when there is no longer any need for it. Uncle Ku, if you want to tell me that you can't go out with unfamiliar uncles and aunties, then you don't have to waste your time on it. Teacher Irika has been buzzing our ears with this. No, I want to tell you about something else. Naruto put his chopsticks on the plate and pushed it aside, showing that he was ready to listen to Kurama's speech, and he in turn began to tell what Mikoto advised him to tell. So, Kurama picked up a flower pot from the table and put it on the table. Flowers have pistils and stamens. Night. Kurama came home after a good drinking session. And so, almost dying of boredom, Kurama crawled to the nearest sofa. He was too lazy to even get to his bed. And he thought that he would sleep the whole next day, but closer to the morning, Kurama was sleeping peacefully on the couch, wrapped in a simple sheet. He slept so sweetly and deeply that even the loud cries outside did not wake him. But there was still one thing that crept into the room like a quiet wind. Having made sure that Kurama was asleep, it began to act. A jump was heard and, "Uncle! Wake up!" Kurama didn't even have time to open his eyes before Naruto landed on him. Such a parade of pain ran through his entire body that the Hyuga clan could only envy. "Uncle Ku, are you awake?" The shocked man's response to the troublemaker was a drawn-out groan. Then, "Get up. It's time for breakfast." The boy jumped off Kurama and ran to the kitchen. The shocked fox lay there for a while, then stood up and followed Naruto with a sleepy gait. When Kurama crawled to the kitchen, he was pleasantly surprised. The table was already set. Kurama turned a suspicious glance to the boy. After all, Naruto usually cooked food to make fun of him. "What is this?" "Breakfast, why?" Kurama sat down at the table hesitantly, picked up his chopsticks, and looked at his bowl. It looked like ramen, He scooped up some noodles and tried them. They tasted just like always. Kurama looked at the boy again, who was eating calmly. The man shrugged and continued eating, and when Naruto finished, he asked, "How is it, Uncle Ku?" "Food is food. Did you like it so much?" Kurama nodded, and Naruto beamed. "So, Naruto, explain?" "And you forgot?" The boy asked in surprise. "Uncle Ku, yesterday was your birthday," Naruto said solemnly. "So?" Kurama tried to pretend that he didn't care, and Naruto, in turn, didn't know what to answer. "Isn't this a holiday for you?" "Yes and no," the fox answered ironically. "How is that?" Well, Kurama thought deeply for 5 minutes, which seemed like an eternity to Naruto. "Let's put it this way, I don't like holidays, but that doesn't mean I hate them. They have their pros and cons, and sometimes even the pros outweigh the cons." "Yes. Stretched out, I see." Naruto didn't understand anything, and Kurama, in response to his words, shrugged his shoulders. "Anyway, where is my gift?" Kurama was genuinely surprised by this phrase. He looked at the boy with confusion, who began to suspect something. "A gift?" "Yes, of course, I have one," the man said with a fake smile on his face. "Really? Where?" Well. And then Kurama was saved by a knock on the front door. He opened the door and on the threshold stood a girl with dark blue hair and pure white eyes. It was one of the owners of the Byakugan, Hinata. "Hello." She greeted Kurama, just as timidly as always. And then it dawned on Kurama. "Hello, Hinata. Are you here to see Naruto?" The fox began. "Yeah. I brought him a present." Kurama already felt uneasy when he heard the word gift. But finding the strength to endure this festive hell, Kurama sat down on his knees next to the girl. "Hey, Hinata, can you help me out? I lost my present for Naruto. Could you distract him for a while?" The little girl was even embarrassed. "If that's how it has to be, then fine. I'll help." "Thank you." Kurama thanked the girl and returned back to Naruto. He was sitting in the living room. "Hey, kid. You have a visitor." Hinata walked into the living room and Naruto was happy. "Hello, Hinata. What brings you here?" "Well. I brought you a present." Hinata hesitantly held out a small box. "Happy birthday, Naruto," she said more confidently now. "Yes, Naruto, happy birthday dash." The fox's brain just did a triple somersault with a flip. "Wait, what?" Kurama looked very pale from shame. Okay, he forgot his own holiday, but how could he forget about Naruto? Naruto took the box and opened it. There was a cupcake inside. He tried it and from the look on his face it was clear that he liked it. "Wow, Hinata, did you bake this?" The girl nodded quietly in response. "Thank you very much." Kurama meanwhile enjoyed their idol from afar. He understood that Naruto was not indifferent to Hinata, and he swore, if this blockhead did not understand it, then Kurama would hit him so that he would understand everything. Okay, kids. He looked out from behind the door happily. I'll go now, and you sit here for now. And Kurama left the house, closed the door behind him, and shot out onto the road, running to the village to find the gift. I'll show them all. I'll definitely become Hokage. Everyone will respect me, Databeo. Kurama listened to today's concert in his room. He really didn't want to come into the world. It was curious, of course, why the boy was so angry, but laziness overshadowed his curiosity. The peace didn't last long until a booming voice echoed through the man's room. Uncle Ku, get your ass over here. The man growled, lying in his bed. Ass, that's definitely about him, of course. After all, he spoiled the boy. Look, he doesn't even respect him. Okay, he's not afraid, but at least he had a conscience. Hey, I'm talking to you. Naruto said, ripping the blanket off Kurama. The fox sighed. Oh, someone's going to get it now. He said affirmatively, and finally deigned to get out of bed. For a minute they stared at each other in silence and anger, and then Kurama discovered a huge black eye under his left eye, a couple of burns and scratches on his arms, and Naruto was only leaning on one leg, a clear sprain, if not a fracture. Kurama sighed. He didn't feel like hitting the boy at all. If a girl beat you up, I won't treat you, don't even ask, he said, directing his chakra into Naruto's leg. There was a soft cracking sound, and the blonde held the dislocated kneecap was back in place. It would be better if it was a girl, Uzumaki sniffed and said gloomily, sitting down on the floor, fucking Uchiha. Rolling his eyes, Fox continued to treat his boy, expecting a detailed story. But, running into a fierce look, he only snorted. Well, at least the little one stirred up. Arrogant bastard. Damn him. The strongest? Him? Of course. Oh, how I hate you, Uchiha. Staring blankly at the wall, Kurama thought that maybe 12-year-old boys had too much energy if they were beating each other half to death every damn day. The next morning, Kurama sat in the academy classroom and looked at Naruto with pride, although he should have acted completely the opposite. Next to Naruto stood another boy, whose appearance was no better. Black hair stood up straight, his once white shirt now had only one way out into the trash can, his pants were torn worse than Naruto's. Dark eyes angrily looked into blue ones, and it was clear that the boy was barely holding back from continuing the fight and getting even for the black eye under his right eye, which, in fact, was the reason for Kurama's pride. So, who started the fight? The man asked softly, looking at the shabby boys. It doesn't matter who, the main thing is that Sasuke now has a black eye, said Teacher Irika. And mine too, so what? Do you make a difference between children, Teacher Irika? Kurama asked threateningly, turning his gaze to the worried teacher. Not usually, but Irika stood up from the table, walked up to the man and began to whisper in his ear so that the children wouldn't hear. He's from the Uchiha family, and they've been sponsoring our academy for many years. Apologize to the boy and we'll part ways peacefully. Otherwise, I'm afraid that his parents. Naruto. I wasn't the one who took part in the fight, so the responsibility lies entirely with you. So it's up to you to decide whether to ask for forgiveness or not. Sasuke and the teacher looked at Naruto expectantly. Uzumaki turned to the Uchiha and, after thinking for a moment, bowed slightly and said, "Please forgive my unworthy behavior. I regret that I dared to hit you and cause you inconvenience." At the slightly strange apology for such a student, Sasuke proudly raised his nose and looked at Naruto with undisguised contempt. Naruto quickly straightened up and, smirking, loudly declared, "Is that what you wanted to hear, asshole? Well, fuck you. I don't care who you are or who your parents are, Databeo. That won't stop me from kicking your insolent ass dash." The boy was not allowed to finish speaking, because Kurama gently covered his mouth with his hand and, smiling at the teacher, said, "Since Naruto does not consider Sasuke worthy of his apologies, then perhaps we will go. And if the Uchiha gentlemen want to talk to me, then Makoto Uchiha knows where to find me. Goodbye." The man said goodbye and closed the door behind him and Naruto. The boy looked at Kurama with apprehension. "Aren't you angry, Uncle Ku? Because you fought with your classmate and refused to apologize?" Naruto nodded. "No, not at all. On the contrary, I'm proud that you didn't attach importance to social status. The blonde smiled happily, but the smile faded under Kurama's angry gaze. But for the rude words that I heard just now, someone will get their ass kicked. Morning of another day. Naruto was sleeping. He had almost forgotten what he had promised. Meanwhile, Hinata was standing behind the door, watching the sleeping boy. She had just arrived, and Kurama had asked her to wake the boy up. She was embarrassed to enter the room and wake him up. But finding the strength, she opened the door and walked slowly to Naruto. Hinata began to gently shake his sleeping body. Naruto, wake up. We are going to be late. To which Naruto made some kind of sound and hugged the girl who leaned over. Hinata didn't expect this at all and started to break free from his embrace, but to no avail. And at one point the Hyuga daughter stopped moving. And then Naruto woke up. Hinata? Hey, Hinata? Wake up. But Hinata was out cold. And then Naruto felt a very evil aura. Kurama stood in the doorway. What's going on here? Kurama looked at Naruto, in a t-shirt and shorts, holding Hinata in his arms, next to his bed. Uncle Ku, you got it all wrong, the boy shouted, but it was too late. Really? The fox asked with a wide evil smile. Kurama slowly began to approach Naruto, flexing his fists so hard that his bones crunched. After some time. How dare you? Naruto somehow dodged the plate flying straight at his head and hid under the table. Just in time, a couple of glasses flew after the plate and a particularly well-aimed knife plunged into the tabletop a couple of centimeters from the blonde's ear. Calm down, Uncle Ku. It was an accident. Kurama continued to rage, releasing all of his power. The house could no longer withstand the scorching fury. The windows shattered, the door was torn off its hinges with a crash, and fiery tails soared upward. A terrible heat emanated from Kurama, everything in the room was boiling and melting, and in the middle, hiding behind a thin burning piece of wood, and hissing through his teeth, sat Naruto. What the hell are you doing, idiot? The man's roar seemed to be heard by all of Konoha. It's me. It's my fault. Hyuga shouted, not expecting anyone to hear her. The answer was such a roar that the glass, if it hadn't already been broken, would have crumbled into fine transparent dust. The table, and the guy along with it, were thrown against the wall, and Naruto found himself in front of the man's predatory grinning face. Stepping back and bumping his back into the wall, he had no choice but to raise his hands, close his eyes and, I liked it. There was silence. The bed was burning in the flames, the wooden beams were crackling. Uzumaki carefully opened his eye, and immediately ran into Kurama's attentive gaze. He was looking at Hinata, who was watching everything. What did you just say, Hinata? Kurama said in a silky voice, approaching her. And Naruto didn't hear anything. He was too busy trying not to die. She muttered something, turning away to the wall, but the fox heard everything. So, nothing happened? The man scratched the back of his head in bewilderment. Of course there wasn't, Databeo. Naruto looked around the completely destroyed, burning room, and you made a scene of parental jealousy. Kurama chuckled, and soon a surprised Naruto and Hinata joined in. The laughter echoed for blocks around. But if this little brat bothers you, Kurama started to tell Hinata, but he was interrupted. Uncle Ku, Databeo. Hinata and I are just friends. Right, Hina? Why yes, the girl said uncertainly. But I can put a seal on you, the fox suggested with a smile. Huh? They both asked, glancing sideways at the sly smile. Well, you get the idea. At this moment, Hinata became even more embarrassed, and Naruto began to scream so loudly that it could be heard even in the Hokage's residence. Chapter 12. The truth Naruto was peacefully finishing his ramen and felt a sense of déjà vu when Kurama sat down opposite him with a serious expression on his face. He looked at Naruto with such a piercing gaze that Naruto felt uncomfortable. Pistols and stamens? The guy asks, quickly eating his noodles. Kurama shakes his head. The man takes a deep breath and looks closely at the boy, who felt everything inside him shrink in fear. Did he really find that magazine? Damn it, how careless. Naruto scolded himself until Kurama started. Naruto. Yes, Uncle Ku. Don't interrupt me. Fine. So, Naruto, the man repeated, I have to admit to you, I lied to you. What are you talking about? A lot of thoughts flashed through the boy's head, starting from I'm not your real uncle, I'm actually your father, and ending with you are a hero who must save humanity. Ahem, I thought about it and decided that now is the time to tell the truth. Kurama licked his dry lips and continued, the stork does not bring children. I have kept this from you for long enough, so forgive me. There was an awkward silence, followed by, what? Chapter 13, Exams Naruto looked at the large colorful poster and realized that his eye was twitching nervously. You're going to pass your exams, kid. Or I'm going to scatter copies of your picture of you on the potty covered in chocolate all over town. The poster from his beloved uncle was the very impetus for persistent preparation for the exams on the history of the ninja world. Naruto sat down at the table, surrounded himself with textbooks and hung there. No, of course, he didn't want the whole city to see such a shameful photo, but he understood that there were things that could be accomplished through hard work. The guy sighed sadly and decided to start repeating the simplest subject, but only after reading the titles of all the textbooks, he realized that there was no such subject. Sighing heavily, Naruto walked into the area he knew. He knocked on the door. Silence fell, and now they seemed like a funeral march to the blonde. The sound of doors opening was heard, and then a rough voice, yes? Hello, Sasuke. I have an offer for you that you can't refuse. Oh yeah? Naruto literally heard the brunette smirk. Do you want to experience a whole storm of varied emotions, from hatred to triumph, all week from 6 to 9? In terms of? Help me prepare for the exam. Naruto pleaded. There was an uneasy silence. Let me think. You stick to me like a bath leaf, we constantly quarrel, and I receive a lot of insults and beatings that I never received from my own mother, and at the same time you ask me to help you with exams? Well, of course. No. I'll be happy to gloat. Sasuke, we're friends. Really? Uchiha was genuinely surprised. And I know what you did last summer, Naruto blurted out, remembering one of Kurama's lessons, not knowing how else to convince Sasuke to help him. I like green tea. Uchiha said quickly and closed the door. Naruto looked at the door in surprise. What did you do last summer? After some time. After a long day at work, Kurama stumbled home, almost exhausted, and walked into the kitchen, from which came the pleasant smell of brewed tea. When the whole day consisted of nerves, fuss, and continuous fights, such an aroma could not help but please. A feeling of comfort and calm immediately appeared, which the fox needed so much at this hour. In the kitchen, Naruto sat on a chair and sadly looked at an open notebook. The man did not immediately notice another guy. A neatly dressed brunette nervously sipped his tea and waited for something. Thin fingers clutched a smiling mug, which did not match the gloomy guy. Hello, boys, Kurama greeted weakly, walking towards the refrigerator. Hello, Uncle Ku. Naruto said quietly, staring unblinkingly at the symbols on the notebook. Good evening, Uchiha greeted him reservedly, sipping some more tea. What are you doing? Looking out of the refrigerator, he nods towards the notebooks and textbooks. We're summoning demons, Naruto answered monotonously and looked sadly at Kurama. This is so fun. The boy's entire appearance evoked an endless surge of pity. It seemed that the boy's inner sun had faded, and now he was a lump of grayness and sadness. Well, it looks like you summoned one, Kurama said, pointing at himself. Haha. His blue eyes were slightly closed, as if Naruto hadn't slept all night and was nodding off, and the smile no longer adorned the guy's face. I'm helping him, Uchiha deciphered the boy's babble. Kurama drawled thoughtfully and, staring at Sasuke, said, Who are you? The phrase, with its untimeliness, made Uchiha himself freeze for a moment and Naruto perk up, because he found a reason to be distracted from his studies. Uncle, you know each other. This is Sasuke. Kurama crossed his arms over his chest and honestly tried to remember the brunette, but only a blurry image appeared before his eyes, which did not give anything sensible. Aunt Miko's son. We were friends when we were kids, and then we got into a fight at school. Ah. Sorry, Uchiha, I didn't recognize you without a black eye. Returning to the search for something tasty, the man muttered, Study, boys. Exams are just around the corner. That evening the level of love for my uncle increased by another degree. Chapter 14. Betrayal Kurama was walking down a quiet night street, and there was a full moon in the sky. At times like these, he just wanted to walk under the moon. But today was that day. A few minutes earlier, Kurama came to that very place, and on that very day. As if it were yesterday, he stood in the clearing and looked at the grave. On it was written, Kushina Uzumaki. Loving wife and mother. Kurama sat down opposite the grave. Hello. Sorry, I haven't visited in a while. Kurama said in a quiet and calm voice. I came to tell you that Naruto is okay. He is very tired, because today is his birthday. Even though all the residents are afraid of him, he has made friends, and even, if I may say so, a girlfriend. You know, he reminds me of you in some way. Even though he looks like Minato, he has your eyes. His smile slowly faded. For me, as well as for the rest of the city's residents, this day is very dark. Because, you understand. Kurama looked up at the flower with white petals. The center of the petals was blue, and in the center were yellow pistils and stamens. And yet, I am all that is left to him. Kurama placed the flower on the grave, stood up and walked back to the village. Now. Kurama had already started to return home when suddenly something exploded. He quickly turned towards the explosion and was horrified. He knew where the explosion happened. Kurama ran as fast as he could to the Uchiha quarter. When he got there, he found only piles of corpses. He ran into one of the houses. He saw Makoto and Fugaku lying next to each other. Approaching the head of the Uchiha, Kurama realized that he was dead. But suddenly he heard a quiet groan. He went to Makoto and lifted her up. Makoto. What happened? Itachi, he. That was all she could say. That's it. No more words. Kurama took her in his arms and ran to meet the other ninja. Here. Take care of her. The ninja picked up Makoto and disappeared. Kurama was filled with anger. Using his fox senses, he found out exactly where Itachi was. At the gates of Konoha. Brother, what have you done? Sasuke asked with horror in his eyes, looking at the bloody Itachi. Itachi didn't answer him, and just continued walking towards the gate. And then Sasuke in desperation pulled out shurikens, and wanted to throw them at Itachi, but, Uchiha. The voice sounded like a bolt from the blue. It seemed to belong to a man, but the intonation of the cry was like the roar of an angry beast. Itachi stopped, and Sasuke turned in the direction of the cry. Kurama was standing almost next to Sasuke, but he did not look like himself. Long red ears stuck out of his hair, his eyes became red and with vertical pupils, for stripes were clearly visible on his cheeks, his teeth became sharper, claws appeared on his hands, and 9 tails swirled behind him. Boy, go to Naruto and wait for me at home, Kurama said in a beastly bass voice, not taking his eyes off Itachi. But, at that moment, Sasuke caught a terrible fox-like gaze. Do as I say before I kill you both. He ran towards the village without hesitation. Now, there are only you and me left. Itachi turned to Kurama. And the fox saw the consequences of killing his family. His Mangekyo Sharingan awakened. I don't want to fight you, Kurama. For now. Oh, forgive me. His Majesty has no time for us mortals. The fox answered him mockingly. But now, you made me really angry, boy, and now. Red chakra began to emanate from Kurama. And soon it covered him completely. I'm furious. Kurama, having drawn his katana, rushed at Itachi with all his might. Despite the fact that the man was slightly larger than Itachi himself, the boy dodged the sword aimed at him. Kurama, no matter how hard he tried, missed again and again. And then Itachi used Amaterasu, and tongues of black flame appeared under the man. Not bad. But you forgot that I am not afraid of flame. Kurama began to gather chakra, and when he finished, he reached Itachi in one big jump, and in one fell swoop delivered a crushing blow. Itachi fell to the ground with a large cut on his abdomen. "Is that all you can do?" The fox laughed as he approached the lying Itachi. But soon the unexpected happened. Itachi turned into a flock of crows and disappeared. Kurama's face was frozen in surprise. "Clone," the fox wheezed. Kurama tried to find Itachi again, but it was all in vain. "I will find you, Itachi. No matter what it costs me." Itachi was gone, and Kurama couldn't do anything about it. The next day, the entire village mourned for the second time. Everyone mourned the Uchiha clan. The only ones left alive were Sasuke and Mikoto. She survived, but is in a coma, and no one knows for how long. Sasuke became more gloomy and stopped smiling. For him, the world became blacker than black. Naruto once tried to cheer him up, but it all ended with them squabbling together, bruises and abrasions. And what about Kurama? He recovered quickly, one might say. It was not the first time for him to lose people close to him. He began to drink more often, but the alcohol did not have the desired effect. Sometimes he just wanted to die, but he could not. After all, there were still unfinished business. He must take revenge on those who decided that they are above everyone else. And Itachi is not the only one on his list. Kurama will fight to the last, until he gets to the truth.